Hello, welcome to the One Life Podcast. We're talking about things from One Life Church, but ultimately things we think can relate to you and your one and only life. My name is Sarah Inman. I'm one of your co-hosts of the podcast. I'm joined as always by co-host of the One Life Podcast. That's his main title around here. And our lead pastor, Brett Nichols.
That's right, main title. And today I'm in the actual seat that usually goes to guests, so I feel like I'm going to do better somehow. I think I am. I think so, yeah.
But you're not the guest, though.
I'm not the guest. That needs to be
seat.
stressed.
Yeah.
I'm not the guest, but I'm sitting in the guest seat because the guest didn't want to sit in the seat.
I just like to sit on the side.
Yeah.
But we have Zach Bila with us today. Zach's been on the podcast before. He's also on staff here at One Life Church as the director of spiritual formation and also main part of what things go on at our West Campus. And we are going to be talking about a spiritual path. And kind of like is that what we called it?
Spiritual formation path?
Spiritual formation path.
Oh, that is its full name? I'm glad we had this conversation.
Has a middle name.
Two of the three words, right?
Okay,
it
does have a middle name. That's the first step.
But that's something that's recently kind of new here at One Life Church, something we kind of always have talked about, but now we actually have it on our website and have it on just in everything that we're trying to plan people to do. And so we want to talk about a little bit how that came about, what that means, and if you are attending One Life, what that means for you. Or if you're someone just listening, you just caught the podcast, you're like, maybe that's something that our church needs to think about or evaluate in a new way. So that's what we're going to try and do today.
All right. And I think we're going to achieve it because I'm sitting in the
seat. You're in the middle seat.
I feel pretty... I'll frame a little bit if it's okay.
Yeah, please.
Right? Well, all churches are called to, reach people and teach people in the end. Go to make disciples of all nations, and everybody goes about that in different ways. And what I've learned after doing this for a really long time is that the name of the game is intentionality. And I think everything we're going to be talking about is related to your own personal life because how do you grow spiritually is a great question. What actually happened? How do you grow into the likeness of Christ? Because that's the goal. And I've referenced it in a ton of sermons, but one of my favorite studies I've ever seen is called Move. It was a study of hundreds of thousands of people across thousands of churches around the nation, and they asked that question, and how does the church contribute to that? And so we've always based off of that in some ways because I like the fact that it was objective data because they asked a good question and they didn't know the answer when they started. A lot of people have theories. But so some of what we've done in the past and then now what we're doing even more is related to that, and it's got some objective data behind why it's this way and why there even is the word path, because that's one of their findings is that you need a pathway, you need some kind of track you can run down. So, and that's why we have a director of spiritual formation. And someone needs to be thinking about this path, and that's who Zach is.
Yeah. And I've been working on this is kind of what I've been working on the past year or so, and even in the language, we chose the language for specific reasons. A lot of churches you probably hear, you've heard the word discipleship before, and you've heard just spiritual growth, but that feels almost like a separate thing, like you're adding on to your normal life this other thing, and so we use the word formation because whether we like it or not, we are all being formed in one way or another. Human beings are not static or dynamic, kind of always shifting and growing and learning and changing. And so that either happens unintentionally just by culture and environment and all that stuff, or there are things that we can do intentionally to kind of help in our own formation. And so that's why we use the term spiritual formation. It's because we are focusing in that part on of the formation process for us.
And that's a good point. You're getting formed one way or the other anyway. You're formed by the experiences you have, the things that you watch, the music you listen to, the people you interact with. Everything is forming you one way or the other. I'm getting formed right now.
That's right.
Being with you guys. But again, the name of the game is intentionality. What are you going to allow to form you? So I'm glad you're at the helm to help form us that way.
And when you're thinking of that, when you think of a path, I think everyone's kind of used to that. Like, you go through school, you kind of know the track or the goal, or the path you're going down. If you're, even especially college, like you kind of meet with an advisor and you have like these are the classes you take to obtain, this degree. And I know it's not exactly that way, but everyone's kind of used to that. Sometimes you come in, you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I know I want to grow, but like, do I just like end up here? And somebody just need a plan, of how to get there.
Yeah, and believe it or not, we don't want people just to come and be at the services and then go home, or be at the services and even just be in a group, and that's just kind of what you do, and you sing some songs, listen to some sermons. The idea is that after you've been here for 5 years, you can look back over and say, I learned a lot, I grew a lot, I changed in this way, in a positive way, and it was worth my time. I can actually see good fruit coming out. So, and obviously Jesus had his 3-year run that he did with his disciples. It was obviously, the more you read it as we're studying Luke, there's a lot of intentionality there. You can tell he took them through certain experiences and taught them certain things. So walk us back through kind of, okay, we could have chosen a lot of different things to include on the formation pathway, but why the things that are there, and kind of describe what they are.
Sure, and I think one of the things that is sort of unique to One Life's path is that it's kind of broken down into 2 different tracks. We call it knowledge track and the practice track, because, and you've alluded to it before in messages and things, it seems like there's always some kind of debate over, well, when you talk about spiritual growth, you talk about discipleship, you talk about formation, does that mean 1 million classes, or does that mean you have to serve all the time? And or is it is it more based in actions or more based in learning? And I've been a part of those and heard them over the years, and we just come to realize that it's clearly both. We are called, and even our last series, the Listen, Do, Repeat. Jesus's model of discipleship, Jesus' model of formation was that he would teach and he would send his disciples, and it's very much a learned and lived faith. The Christian faith is, and so on the knowledge track. We have the first thing on there is Christian Worldview 101, which is a how to read the Bible class, and that is the kind of first stop on the way, because that same study, that MOVE study, talked about the Bible, engaging in the Bible being the thing that moves people closest to God, but a lot of us, it just is so either archaic or we just don't understand it. So how can we grow if we're reading something we just don't understand? And so the first thing we want to do is help people get a foundation to have meaningful engagement with the Bible.
Let me back you up just a little bit. When it comes to the knowledge practice debate, did you just settle the debate? And because I don't know that I was. Were you in a group that was kind of arguing about that? And you said, it might be both, and that was how did all that came about?
I guess I don't remember a particular moment or anything. I just know I have friends that are very much seem to lean on the practice side, and I have other friends that seem to lean on the knowledge side, and they both make great arguments. And so I guess I'm kind of person that is indecisive or something, and so I'm just like, it's both of them.
Sure that everybody?
And in a sense, too, I mean, I know this in my own life. There's phases of your life that sometimes, I don't really like the word calling per se. That's a conversation for a different podcast. But like you're kind of moved into a different kind of phase of your life of like, okay, right now I know that I'm equipped with this great community, but I want to take it somewhere and do something with it, and maybe I'm practicing there, but I want more knowledge. I want to understand more of who God is and understand it more. Maybe I've been in this really knowledge and I've been by myself, but I really need to be in practice with other people. I think there's different times that you need that. You need different parts. I
think that's an important part of it, because a lot of these type of paths that I've seen seem to be very linear, and they sort of say do this, then this, then this, and this, and it's step by step. And what at least I know from my own experience and others is that there seems to be, like you said, times in my life where God is either steering me that way or I'm feeling drawn that way, whatever language you want to put around it.
I messed you up there, didn't I? I messed you up because you didn't want to say call.
Yeah, I know. No. I'm gonna say it's call. I'm gonna go ahead and throw my cards on there.
Yeah, well, if you are a Jesus follower and you use that type of language, then you could say calling. But if you're walking in a church and you're brand new and you may not want to use that language yet, but we at least have this sense where right now I kind of need this, and Jesus does call us into both of these areas. But again, one of the reasons we use formation is because it is a long, slow, incremental process that we're formed, into the image of Christ, and so it's over time in each of our lives. God is working on us and moving us into different areas.
Yeah, I was actually, it was funny when I saw the knowledge practice thing. I thought, oh, that's probably the best way to go about it, because I've been at 1,000 of those debates too, and it's pretty smart to. I can say that because I think the credit goes to you or whoever just came down on it. That typically the both and thing is true. If there's a huge debate, probably both sides are right. It just, you're applying it wrong. It's not one or the other. It's, yes, Jesus taught, and then he sent them out to do stuff. And then he taught, and he sent them out to do stuff. So it is both at the same time. And I love the fact that that's built into the pathway, because it's stressing that. Because you can go through a season where you really do need to just accumulate more knowledge and insight into who Jesus is, and biblically speaking and all that. But there's definitely times in your life when you've learned a lot of things.
Yeah.
And you probably need to just get out there and do something, because I've noticed that the knowledge really goes deeper when you have to engage with other people and you have to see things. And so I've always said, mission trips are a very, very good example. I love for people to go on third world mission trips, because it just makes a lot of that knowledge go into places where it wouldn't go otherwise. So way to go. See, you just, that's right. That indecisive thing. It actually.
and even I know, like, as you're talking about that they both work together. Like, it's not like, do this one and then this one afterwards. Like, even when we were looking at the creative, like, we wanted them to be balanced to where, like, you start in one place and you can go into either or.
Yeah, and it's a great guidance system to think that way. Now, you did refer to so we said if there is a first step, you get a kickstart, and that kind of sets the lets you know what's going on. But then we talked about that 101, Christian Worldview 101, which is, the subtitle is How to Read the Bible, right?
Right.
Is that correct? Okay.
You're right.
It's funny how much I don't know about this, but I should know. We called it formation. Really? Wow. Great. Okay. Let's kind of explore that a little more. When it comes to the Bible knowledge thing, what were you out to do with that? And what can people expect if they were to take advantage of that?
Well, I think what's great about it, and I said, and there's a one-lifer named Dan Gross who helped create much of the content. So a lot of credit goes to him, and I actually sat through it. And I've been engaging with the Bible for a really long time. I grew up in church and everything, but even after that, I was like, oh man, this is great. And it for one, it can help people learn how to engage the Bible differently. It's there's many different authors, many different genres of literature in there, but it can also just free people. I think that the reason I would want everyone to take the class more than anything is because I think we have this kind of perception about what the Bible is and how we have to treat it. And I think that this class can be a really freeing thing for that, to help people engage in Scripture in a real meaningful way.
When you said it was really great, why though? I mean, what's great about it? Is it just good to understand? Does it got to do a bunch of unique things? What for you made it great?
I guess sitting in there and watching people get the aha moment from different things of when you realize that when you talk about Paul's letters being letters and how you read a letter is different than how you read narrative or how you read poetry. And when you talk about how the first century Eastern thinker would think about the Bible, interpret it as opposed to how we do it now. And just a lot, especially if you were brought up in a pretty conservative church. I think, again, it can be very freeing in the way that you engage with it.
I've sat through the first one so far because we were trying to record all these to make them available on demand, which is something that we just know is part of the world now. People connect on demand, and some other things on the path. We get to those that we have worked on already. But I remember sitting in it, and I was just sitting behind the camera, basically just thinking I'll just kind of hang out in here, make sure the camera's working, and I was into it, like just the conversation, and something that I think Dan is just a great communicator for one, but also communicating it in a way that's like, this feels so just relatable and natural, and understanding something, and not just being like, oh, here's this verse I pulled out of the Bible and it speaks to me in this moment. Let's actually understand what the Bible is trying to say overall as one story. So
yeah, it feels like it lines up well with our authenticity value as well, where we're not pretending that the Bible is super easy to understand, and we're not pretending that we don't have hard questions. We're allowing. I remember Dan talking about one of the first times he taught it, and having someone that was a longtime Christian say, I didn't know we could ask those type of things. And so I think it lines up well with that vision or that value statement.
Well, and think about this. If you're listening and you want to grow spiritually, the study I always reference, it was fascinating. Again, they started off just asking the question. They didn't have any built-in agenda or anything. What helps people grow spiritually? What is that? And they discovered, and they said the number one thing they noticed was that the Bible, personal interaction with the Bible, was the number one thing. It's not the only thing, but it tends to have more impact. And they said across everything from someone who doesn't even necessarily consider themselves as a believer yet, a brand new believer, or someone who's been in this thing for a really, really long time, it has that equal impact. And so they said if you could only pick one thing to do to grow spiritually, it would be that. But the problem with it is, we all know this, you open up the Bible, and many of us are just ignorant of how it functions. And I feel bad for people. Many people may not know it's not in chronological order. It's in type of book order. I recently went through the devotional, in my own devotional, went through the Minor Prophets. And in some ways I felt bad for people. I thought, if there are people out there reading this, some of the stuff is just so completely indecipherable. You don't even know what it's like. What is he talking about right now? And so it's to be equipped where you don't feel just ignorant of the thing and know where you are is enormous. And then you can open the Minor Prophets and get a feel. That's what we're trying to do with the class. Is just equip people. You can open up in the Bible and do that. So say I do that, and I've done what else is on there that's important to know?
What else is on the path?
Yeah, just the path. Yeah,
the
spiritual formation path.
That's spiritual formation path. Yes. So on the knowledge side, we have CW 101, which is the How to Read the Bible, as well as CW 201, which is kind of a basic Christian beliefs. And Carolyn Edwards came up with that. And again, another really good one to just talk. Why do you hear Christians use the sort of language they do? Why do they do these things? It's again getting permission to ask the questions of why, and getting to get some answers.
How's that different from the Bible one, though? I mean,
I think it's more theology. So it's instead of understanding Scripture, it's understanding the language that has been put around Scripture over the years from the church and that kind of stuff. Okay. And sort of a why we do these type of practices and things.
So it's about beliefs and practices, so they're not foreign to you.
Yes.
Kind of okay. You have a deeper understanding now. I get it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people that have come. I know Carolyn pretty well, and coming out of that class that she's taught for really a couple of years now, I think. Yeah. So many people have gotten connected from that conversation because, again, kind of what you said about 101 is like, I didn't know I could ask those questions, and sitting in a place where someone's just saying, and maybe not even having the answer, but allowing you to ask the question. Man, there's some freedom there, and allow people to grow. Because one of our values is we believe you can bring your brain to church, and I think we mean that, and sometimes the questions that people ask are like, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm glad you're here asking it, and let's have a conversation and study together.
Yeah, it's definitely freeing, like you said. It's different than, at least again, especially for people that have grown up in the church and sort of, at least in my experience, had those questions and just felt like I wasn't allowed to ask them. And so for a lot of people, if your experience was like me in that way, it's just very freeing to get to finally just...
Well, and it is my understanding as well that if you do the live version of the experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a live one like on the campuses. Mm-hmm. There's a Zoom version, virtual. But when I say Zoom or whatever, it's still interactive. Yes. It just happens to be virtual. And then there's on demand, which is you're not going to have the interaction. But my understanding is that they're designed to be kind of it's not you're going to a lecture and listening to someone. They're more you circle up and you are taught, but you do get to ask questions like
Yeah.
in real time and there in the course of the conversation. I think it's important for people to know that we're talking about, we want you to have a connection with other people. And like you were saying, Sarah, that people have come out of there and go in, they made some friends, and they were in an environment where you could really dig down deep with those things.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's important to know, I think, that because that's part of your spiritual formation is relationships and everything else. We have a one lifer here that does, we've had him on, Braxton Hunter, he's been on a podcast before. And he deals with almost exclusively the atheist. There's some like 2,000 atheists that listen to his channel now and all that sort of stuff. Wow. And he said the number one question that they have is about the Old Testament, about why is God the way he is in the Old Testament. He said he confronts that one more than any other single thing. And so if you have that, and even as a Christian person or unbelieving person, you do have the freedom to go into Dan's class and answer that, and I'm sure Dan will have some great answers for you.
or he might not have the great answers, but you have permission to ask the question. But you have
permission to ask it, And it makes me wonder how many of these people grew up in church, and maybe that's one of the reasons they are where they are, because they always had these struggles and just didn't. So that's critical to understand. So so you got Carolyn's thing, and then finally on the knowledge side, what else is?
Yeah, centered, which is answer. And I always say this backwards, and Sarah always corrects me, but I'm going to say it right this time, but probably not because I'm now more thinking it. Answering the most meaningful and important questions in life.
Important and meaningful.
Important and meaningful, yes. I don't feel so bad for not knowing the spiritual formation thing. Okay.
Yeah, so centered is a study of worldviews, and again, it's just it's addressing questions, hard questions that everyone has to sort of think through if they're going to live a reflective life at all. And it's it's answering and exploring questions like where did it all come from? Is there hope? Are human beings? Are we animals? Are we highly evolved machines, or are we something else? It's a really fun, interactive class, and I love our CAC team, which Sarah's a big part of. Created these short films. The voice of the short films.
Yeah, that's right.
The voice of the short films.
Launched my podcast career. No, I didn't. I was already on the podcast.
But so for Centered, the content is sort of driven by you watch this short film and then you sort of respond to it, and you're looking at how different worldviews answer the question, because every worldview, if it's going to be credible, has to at least attempt an answer. So.
Well, and the reason that one's so important and we put it on the path is it does have to do with our vision, which is planting churches devoted to changing the secular worldview of the next generation. And we wanted a baseline of what do we even mean by that? Secular worldview is the most common worldview in the United States, and learning how to think that way, because you live in a pluralistic society. There's a mosque right up the street from our East Campus. There's a Hindu temple in Newburgh. You're surrounded by all kinds of belief systems, and what that's supposed to do is help you to navigate that and understand what the different belief systems do and how the Christian worldview stacks up and how you can understand it in the grid of that in the modern world. It's very important they're not requirements, they're not prerequisites or anything like that. But if I could have all one-lifers, I would have all one-lifers go through all these, but especially that one because of that of our vision and also what you're dealing with in the modern world. It's just, and Sarah is the voice of it, and help film it and produce it, and we all did a lot of work on it.
We did, yeah. It's one of those that's like, okay, this one was worth it, we're still using it. Okay?
We have so much that's not worth it. This one is worth it.
That one maybe. Okay.
There's some boxes of books of things that we printed. I'm like, oh man, we spent some time on that. It always
goes back to the books.
Always.
That's another podcast. As we talk about my calling is to produce books for Sarah to print that
we can talk
don't matter.
About that sometime.
But I love the Centered class. I think everyone should take it. It's enjoyable. None of these are like going to the dentist and pulling teeth. These are fun, interactive experiences.
And Zach taught that one for the on-demand, which we're hoping to launch right now. We actually just made a call to push it back just a little bit because we have a couple things we're still trying to iron out of.
That's how bad I did.
No, you did a great job. The videos are done, but the interactive side, we still want to create interactive parts, and then we need to make some tweaks on the book. So we're working on some of that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a new learning of, again, this 2020 is.
Now, does it have a virtual interactive version of it?
That kicks off in April.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll have on demand first for Centered, and then April 11th, I believe it comes on campuses. So it'll be on campuses in April, and as well as a virtual from there.
Excellent. Okay, so that's your knowledge path. Now, am I fair to assume that there will be other things coming in the future, like a couple years from now, where I can study Exodus or I can learn how to do other things?
Yeah, I think at least in my own mind, the vision is you don't want this path to have 47 things on it that you're going through.
Okay.
So there, in my mind at least, there's this sort of catch-all, whatever we call it, One Life University or whatever, where you would go to find all the different sort of content, the classes that we create that will continue to form you.
So it's almost like you have the path, which has the 7 elements to it, but then there'll be spin-offs or something that will be where I can study different things that might be everything from a book of the Bible to how to have a deeper prayer life or some such thing.
Yeah,
like that.
I hope so.
Okay.
I think that would be good. What are you smiling at, Sarah?
I just had this remembrance. I don't know why I said remembrance. I just remembered. This was.
She had a remembrance. That's right.
Of Dan Sullivan on our podcast saying that his favorite book of the Bible was Numbers. Do you remember?
Oh, yes, I do remember that.
Thinking,
yeah.
like, what if we can get Dan to teach on Numbers? That'd be so fun.
That would be absolutely great. And we thought he was just kind of blowing smoke, and then he demonstrated why. He was like, "This is the great story in Numbers." And
Dan's cool.
So he does. He needs to teach on Numbers.
Yes.
Okay, so I've got all that, and then I've got the practice thing.
So. Yeah, the Christian faith is not just, it's not just a set of beliefs that you sort of assent to, but it is a very lived faith. And so we wanted to identify that at least the things that we have to help people be active in their faith, some way that we can help them. And so in our practice track, we have groups, because in groups you are practicing things like hospitality, fellowship, and conversation and group prayer, all these things that are an important part of the Christian faith that can happen in groups, and as well as our teams, which a team is a service opportunity within the church. In our teams there are worship and production teams, there's kids ministry teams, students, security, just all sorts of things, and one of the things that we really try to do and pride ourselves on at One Life is that we don't want our teams to just be people that get together and complete some task, but we want them to be communities that actually help people trust and follow Jesus. So we're teams, and then the final thing is city. We have community partners that you get out of the church and serve in the community, because again, one of our values is we don't just build great churches, we build great cities locally and globally, and so we want to make sure and highlight that as well. And so the practice track, there are plenty of things to join in on and get a part of that.
And I'm sure it helps. Some people say, why do we always say groups and teams? What's the difference? So in case you didn't know the difference, you just got it.
Yeah.
I know that's they're not synonymous. That's the terminology we've given them to them.
Yeah, so we have groups, and you can just check out your campuses, or if you're online, check in with us online. We have virtual groups as well. You can find those on our groups page. But some groups meet in living rooms, some groups meet on campus, and then some groups meet virtually. There's sort of options for all.
Right. So maybe I'm a group skeptic. I'm just putting myself in someone else's spot. I'm not a group skeptic. However, but you've had a lot of experience with groups. You're the director of spiritual formation. You want to see people formed. Why do I need to do that?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a good question.
Thank you. I look forward to your answer.
Well, you're in the center seat, so no.
That's right. What's your answer? Yeah.
Well, one, I think, good answer to that is the way that we see Jesus when he was on earth, and I've heard this from you. I've been in Kickstarter enough now that I have the videos memorized, and you talk about.
Oh, that's right. We made videos for
you. Talk about how listening. If Jesus, if this is God come to earth, if Jesus could have came back any way he wanted, he could have been a king, could have been some military conqueror. He came back and as this itinerant preacher, and he pulled together this small group of people to live in relation with. And so if Jesus is showing us what it's like to live life to the full, then there's something very important about that, the fact that that's what he sort of designed his life around. And over those years with them, that group was formed into something that could withstand, all the things that were to come, persecution and the death of your leader, everything else. So, and we don't have that time very, very much anymore, where we're getting together with people and having meaningful conversations about things that matter. Everything is so short and instant and back and forth, social media, all this kind of stuff that to actually sit around with people and have conversations is almost a lost art in some way.
Sure.
And so there's something meaningful about that for sure. But if you are hesitant, I think that joining a team first is a good option. You're together and you get a sort of a taste of what it's like to be in a group, because your team sort of becomes a group. It's just not you're serving around a common task kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a good first step in, because you have a common task that you're doing, and but it's still relational, and our goal with our teams. But I got to ask you this, Sarah.
Yes.
But I know group and relational life is a very, very high value to you. It's more so than the average person.
You think so?
I mean, that's been my observation over time.
Pays attention. Knows me.
That's right, I do. So, but what do you think's so forming about that? I mean, why is it such a high value in scripturally, and what is it? What does it do to form us?
I think of experiences that I've had, and actually kind of leads into what our next series is going to be, talking about being restored and restoring each other and feeling restored after kind of a just up and down year. And for me, I feel kind of rest and restoration when I'm with people. In a sense of like, you can just be yourself. You can kind of learn together, and maybe you're sitting around the table, having coffee, but like, man, I've been thinking about this, and you ask it because you're like, I don't know if I can even ask this question, and then like, hey, let's talk about it, and it turns into just a bonding experience of people who know you, kind of know what you're studying and kind of how you even process things, and eventually create the opportunity to do the same back. And it's not just a relationship. Most groups I've been in have never been a relationship where it's like I'm just grabbing something from them or they're just grabbing something from me. It's always a back and forth, and it's a reconnection. But I mean, I can think of moments from groups here at One Life where people showed up. Like if I was sick, actually Zach's family dropped off some things when I was home with COVID to my house. They were trying to surprise me, but I caught them. But it was also super sweet. But it's like things like that of people that are in your life that I think just knowing care and connection, but also I believe it's a good model of who Jesus is, that we are not alone, that we have community with people to study together, to learn together, to ask questions. And it's a model like, of Jesus' life, but also just a model of who Jesus is in our own life. Yeah.
Good answer.
Well, I love that stuff.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I wanted people to hear from somebody who was really passionate about it.
But, I mean, I even think of, like, students, like, seeing them connecting with people, that's what they want, more than anything. Like, I say students, that's middle school, high school here, but they want community of people, and if we can create, spaces for them to have community with people and adults who are, helping them kind of just shape some of those questions, they don't even know what to ask sometimes. Like, that's still something that's just a model of what we want to create, I think, here.
And in the course of the 10 years of One Life, probably the largest lesson I learned in this season of my ministry, going back 10 years before, it was missions and the importance of missions. I went from, you're supposed to do it, to a fanatic about it. Like, I had that miniature conversion. We've all had those. During the One Life thing, I went very heavy mission, but the biggest learning was the community piece. Through Bible study and through observation, the fundamental importance that God was building a community, and that's what local churches are. People, why do I go to church? Because I've heard those arguments my whole life, and that's why I adopted the saying that you don't have to be part of a church to be a Christian, but you do have to be a part of a church to live like one. Because that was a true learning for me on a deeper level. It made me more fanatical about the importance of the faith community, and that's why we challenge people to do that, because I don't think you can be formed in the way you're supposed to be formed without that. And that's because people always talk about love. Well, that's what love is. Love is I've got to love you guys, and you're in my life, and love has to be more than just this theory that you feel good about yourself, just kind of walking around. You think of yourself as a halfway nice person. I have to actually do things like go to Sarah's, and even though I didn't, and you did, and take stuff. I texted you when you were sick.
You did. Thanks, Red.
That was awesome of me, wasn't it?
Well, those are just examples, of things.
Right. Yeah.
Another unique thing about groups, I think, again, is just that when it comes to the way the world seems to relate with each other now, it's like on social media, you only see your own mirror position, like people that agree with everything that you agree with, or like the complete opposite that you obviously have no part of, and it's just like the polar opposite. Right. And then when we hang out with people, generally we hang out with people that look and act and do a lot of things that look a lot like us. Again, another mirror. But in Christian community, you learn to love, and you learn to not villainize people that have different opinions and views than you. That you just don't get in other places really anymore.
That's true, because it gives you a baseline connection. The crisis of what you have in common, but you may not have anything else in common as far as backgrounds and all that. Because I've interacted with people across a wide spectrum of people I never thought I would hang out with, and I think it's huge. I also heard a guy, as far as formation goes. He said, the only way you're going to learn patience is to be put in situations that demand patience of you. The only way you're going to learn forgiveness is to be put in situations that demand forgiveness of you. Anybody can think about, the knowledge side. That's a great idea. I love to forgive people.
Yeah, right.
But then you actually get the opportunity to forgive someone. That's what Christian community is for, because the New Testament says that all the time. Like, forgive one another. Well, that's why you're there. The community is actually teaching you to do that. The last one's city, so help us understand that one.
Yeah, it's just we hopefully our formation, we become a person of love over time, and form into a person of love, and that moves beyond the church into our cities. And so again, the value that we have at One Life, we say it as we don't just build great churches, we build great cities locally and globally. And so we have a lot of people in our church, and they may connect to a number of other city opportunities, but we at least want to have an option for people to connect to the people that we partner with. So I attend. I'm a part of the community at One Life West, and so we have Dream Center as a partner, and we have Daniel Wirtz, and we have Uncharted. There's just a number of and Community One, just a number of different things that if you don't have a way to sort of serve outside the walls of the church, we can help you do that.
Oh, that's excellent. And how, and I guess I throw this out to all of us, how's that forming? What does that do? As opposed to, okay, I'm on a team, I'm in a group, I'm having a Bible study, but I do those things you just named. What extra dimension does that bring into my life?
I mean, for me, I see it as like I can connect with people on my own. I can connect with people at my church, on a Sunday or, maybe a week, sometime throughout the week. But actually taking that out into the community is actually, I think, again, gospel focused, of saying I'm not just going to stay in this location with it. I'm going to take it out and be a part of that, and connecting with more people in the community. And also, you mentioned mission trips, with Uncharted. We're not just talking about local, we're talking about global as well. And so being able to actually, be Jesus in the world, not just in our buildings.
Yeah.
It's so interesting too. This again, it's Jesus revealing what the fullest life looks like, and it's so counter to what we think, because there's been so many times when I'm serving where if you were to pitch the idea to me of what we're about to do, it would sound like a drag, or it would sound like something I would not necessarily want to volunteer my time to do. But I walk away after it just feeling alive, like more the way, like you said, interacting with people, you just develop relationships faster, and it just becomes this, I don't know, it's this shared experience, and it's something obviously that that we are sort of meant to do, because it does touch something in our spirits that we can't get to otherwise. If that makes sense at all.
And it's transformative, because I as you were saying that, I thought, I've been to a ton of concerts, I've gone to a lot of games, I've had a lot of fun things I've got to do. But the transformative things have been those trips like that put you outside your context. And like you said, in some ways it's a drag. You go to a third world country and you're helping build something and you're sweating and you're doing all these things, but there's something literally transformative about it that you just hit at a completely different place than you do. And I still like concerts, but I mean, there's another dimension there you just can't get anywhere else. It's just fascinating how that works.
Yeah, I still have a great memory of City Serve. We were building raised beds, garden beds at the Dream Center, and it was pouring rain, and we're covered in mud. And I just like, if I was to pitch that to anybody, it would sound awful. But we had a blast, and it was just
create those experiences with people. Yeah.
It does, yeah, and you're looking back on that, and you lay on your deathbed. You'll probably go, remember that time we stood in the rain, got mud all over us, and built things. So Jesus knows what he's talking about as far as pushing people and pushing all of us towards that. So that's why it's part of our pathway. I've said many times, I encourage everybody to go on a third world mission trip, but sometimes just cross cultural is helpful as well, because and you can do that locally. You can get into context where that demand of you, something that makes you uncomfortable or unfamiliar, and it puts you in a dependent place, I think, is another part of it, because you're like, oh, Lord, help me. I remember I did nursing home ministry. I was in college. I did not want to do that at all. It was completely outside my context. Changed my life, really did. I mean, just because it was so counter to what I was used to, and however that works. So that's what we're aiming for all of us to do, and Zach's leading the way. Anything else to kind of that you would want people to know about the pathway, or what you'd want to challenge them with?
Not necessarily about the pathway. Something you said that was really, I think, a huge light bulb moment for me was just the idea again of formation. That when, let's talk about, you might have said a person of patience, or becoming a person of peace. Let's say it's God could, at the moment we receive Christ, he could turn us into that, and we would forever have peace. But the way that he has laid life out and has shown in Scripture is that over these small incremental moments in time, we become a person of peace through action, and that's the same for anything else. Just this, we're formed slowly over time, incrementally. It's not this quick change. God could do it that way. I always have to put that in there. He could do that. He could take that from you. He could give you that, but he seems to value the process of becoming. And so there's something must be really important about that.
Yeah, maybe it's the analogy is children. We're his children, and so you watch your children grow, and it's a blast at every stage that they're at, but you don't want them to stay at the stage that they're at. You don't want a kid that's supposed to be acting 16 to be acting like he's 3, that kind of thing. It doesn't quite work that way. So appreciate that.
Zach, thanks for all the work on this. I'm excited to be a part of helping continue to create it. So
yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
And it is path, not pathway. I just want to get that on the record just to make sure I did.
Yeah.
So,
I felt it as soon
if anyone can count the number of times that he says pathway instead, we won't give you $1 million like they did at the Super Bowl. But.
Again, well, we haven't said this yet, but if you want to check these out, you can go to onelifechurch.org/connect. All of these opportunities are on there. You can find out more information. You can sign up for them. We'll have information about the on-demand classes, the virtual classes, if you're not in this area, or if you want to attend locally, we'll have information about there as well. So again, onelifechurch.org/connect. Zach, thanks for joining us. It's good to hang out.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for having me.
Brett, good job in the middle seat.
Hey, thank you.
You represented it
I don't
well.
think I'll be here again, though.
All right, we'll see you guys again next time.